Their share of that today, perhaps seeking to ingratiate themselves in the early hours of a more autocratic era in American history. Mark Zuckerberg, Tim Cook, Jeff Bezos were there at St. John's Church earlier. The CEOs for Google and TikTok will be around for all of the Trump inauguration events happening today, and they were at the swearing in. People who have everything to gain in a democracy that has everything to lose. Joining us now is Democratic Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut. You've been sounding the alarms since the earliest hours on Election Day. Your thoughts about how much of what you've been warning about is coming to pass today?
You're watching the unraveling of our democracy. It's not about to happen. It is happening right now. Elon Musk got into this speech a commitment to go to Mars. Right? There is a dispute inside the scientific community, inside the NASA, as to whether we should be going to Mars or to the moon. It makes Elon Musk an even richer man if the choice is to go to Mars. He got that. Mark Zuckerberg went down to Mar-a-Lago and got instructions to stop fact-checking on Facebook. When asked, Donald Trump said, yeah, I'm sure he made that change because he was afraid of what I might do to Facebook when I was president. Right? This is the unraveling of our democracy, because what is happening before our eyes, literally on that stage today, is that the billionaires who control huge parts of this economy are trading favors with Donald Trump behind closed doors, often where none of us can see it. And what is even worse about the moment today is that the first official policy that Trump is going to pursue here in Congress is a massive tax break for those billionaires and those corporations, paid for by devastating cuts to regular people: Medicare, Medicaid, the Affordable Care Act, education programs. This is a government for, by, and of the billionaires. It's an old-fashioned corruption, and you saw it on display inside the United States Capitol today.
It was an argument and a warning made by folks like yourself, former Vice President Kamala Harris, former President Joe Biden. And I wonder where you think the disconnect is with the voters that they chose this.
I mean, listen, I think it's always easier to believe that the worst isn't going to happen. And the history with Trump is that, of course, he says lots of things that he doesn't end up doing. But what you saw today was surgical. It was precise. Not every CEO of a major American company was up on that stage. Who was up there in front of the cabinet? The CEOs of the major information companies in this country, the people who control, through their algorithms and their editorial policy, the information that the vast majority of Americans consume. How democracy dies is a fairly simple story. First, you intimidate your opposition into staying home. And that's what he's doing by endorsing political violence today and threatening to lock up the people who investigated him over the past 10 years. But then you control the media. You cut deals with all the people who own the information channels, and you tell them to just chill out on criticism, pump up my own narrative, and in exchange, I'll make you a little bit richer. That's exactly what's happening today. That's exactly what's happening. And democracy doesn't die in a heartbeat. It doesn't die overnight. It dies because gradually the truth doesn't appear on your information channels. It dies gradually as folks just decide to stay home instead of risk showing up on somebody's enemies list. The moment is really dire, and we've got to tell that story to people.
What's the remedy?
The remedy is to go out there and build a political opposition that stops this corruption. I mean, everybody said that the Affordable Care Act was going to be repealed in 2017. It wasn't, because we went out and built a political constituency to stop it. On the left, we've got to build our own media ecosystem. We've got to make sure that if places like Facebook and Twitter aren't venues where people can hear us, that we've got alternative forums where the truth can get out. So we've got work to do to organize the public. We've got logistical work to do to make sure that there are fair-minded platforms that hear all messages. But that's the work we've got to do. We've got to do it beginning today with urgency.
Where is the urgency behind the scenes that maybe strategically we can't see, but in stopping some of the Trump nominees that are the most controversial. I sat here and covered day after day, week after week, month after month, Tommy Tuberville's damage to not just active duty military and their families, but to the combat readiness of the United States. That was the position of the Pentagon. How do you slow down nominees that Democrats and even some Republicans have called wildly unqualified?
We can't stop all these nominees. We can only probably stop a few, and so we've got to be really targeted. Listen, I would put at the top of the list Kash Patel, right? If the FBI becomes a political arm of the White House, which is what Kash Patel will make it, if Kash Patel takes his enemies list, which include members of the Biden administration, members of Congress, individual FBI agents, and operationalizes it, it will have the impact of suppressing political dissent and political speech in this nation such that we may never recover. Now, I think there may be 3 or 4 or 5 Republicans who are considering voting against Kash Patel, but only if they get phone calls from their constituents telling them, you know what, let this person go, but don't let the FBI be fundamentally corrupted by an extremist like Kash Patel. But those phone calls won't happen if we aren't all speaking with one voice. And I will just say I'm worried that we are not necessarily translating right now the urgency of stopping some of these nominees, especially the ones that are going to transition the justice system into a political witch hunt operation for President Trump.
Yeah, I mean, I share your concerns that there is a real sense it is challenging to cover the resistance or the opposition to Trump right now. Could you say anything about what's happening behind the scenes to organize Democrats around messages and messengers?
Sure. Listen, we are meeting every day later today to begin to build out that campaign that's going to stop, hopefully not just a couple of these nominees, but stop that billionaire tax cut. Again, we have faith because we stopped the repeal of the Affordable Care Act that we can organize the country by traveling the country against the billionaire tax break. But listen, there are some people in my party that think you sort of reserve power to use at a later time, that you wait until the moment is the most urgent. I actually don't believe that's how politics works. I worry that if we sort of remain quiet right now and wait until the right moment in February or March to scream at the top of our lungs, people won't take us seriously because many people see that the corruption is beginning right now. So I just think you've got to be at top volume level every single day. And I think if you are, your credibility about the messages that you're sending, the oligarchy is forming, our democracy is falling, the corruption is beginning. It just has a lot more weight if you're consistent about it.
Yeah, and there are examples under all 3 of those buckets that were on full display today and over the weekend.